Bruhim Habayim, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be discussing things that I've learned in my early 20s. So what I'll do is I'll leave the timestamps for you down in the description box below, but I'll also list them right here as well for you if you just want to check them and fast forward to any part of this video right now. So stay tuned because we have a lot to discuss. So chapter 1 brings us to the topic of you're not gonna have every single thing figured out, and that's okay. When I started reaching my 20s, it came by super fast, okay? I had graduated high school when I was 17, then I went to college for 2 years. So by the time I graduated college, I was 19, so I still wasn't quite 20 yet, and I had the mindset to start a business and to do this and to do that, and all the while, I would write down my goals, write down my plans, which is good. But at the end of the day, me being 24 now, I have realized that no matter how much you stress, no matter how much you try and plan for things, no matter how much you try and write things down, no matter how much you actually work and put work in to make those things happen, there are things that are going to come up in life that you're just not prepared for, that you're not equipped to yet, that you're not experienced with yet. And I can list so many. One of those things, the first thing that comes to my head was when I bought a brand new car by myself. Normally people, when they buy their first car, they'll bring like a parent with them or a guardian with them, someone to give them advice or whatever. I just prayed about it and I did a lot of research and I looked for the signs. The signs finally came, but it took a lot of patience and waiting. And then I finally went through that whole experience. But that in itself was, again, something that I never experienced. Was, again, something that did not come when I wanted it to. It came when God decided to give it to me. Because I was definitely being patient and waiting for a long time I was trying to figure out, like, okay, when am I going to get, like, the signs to get a car, buy a car, whatever. It didn't happen when I thought it was going to happen. And it didn't happen when I wanted it to happen. But eventually, it happened. And the same thing goes with starting my business and, you know, gaining a loyal group of clients and customers. You know, those things take time, but even in the midst of everything, like I said before, we're not gonna have everything figured out, and that's okay because we're learning and we're growing. I feel like there's this fake facade about being in your 20s, because I know for me especially, my mindset of being in my 20s is, okay, Naomi, you're a young adult, so you need to have your life figured out. And that's not the reality of it. The reality is that we graduated college and high school not too long ago, and we're experiencing a lot of these things for the very first time. Buying a car, getting a place to live in, finding an actual concrete job. Some of us jump from job to job. Some of us actually want to invest into like a job where we want to stay at for like 20, 30, 40 years from now. You know, whatever we have set in mind. Some of us, like myself, we're entrepreneurs. So a lot of, you know, the stress and the irritation, but also the ambition and the motivation that we go through on a regular basis, it's very clear and it's very obvious. You are not gonna have everything figured out. Life is gonna throw you some curveballs, which it definitely threw me some, but I hit them back in due time. I'm not gonna lie, some of them kind of knocked me down a bit, but you learn to hit them back in due time. And when life throws you lemons, like how I always say, make lemonade and then sell it, okay? But it's okay to not have everything figured out, and I've had to come to peace with this, because there's many times when I'm looking through an old vision board or looking through old written goals that I had, and even though I did eventually achieve them, I started to reflect and say, hey Naomi, the timeline that you gave yourself, it didn't happen right away, but in the end it happened. And when you see when it happens and where it happens and how it happens, you realize, okay, God, okay, you definitely know what's better for me than I do myself, so I'm gonna ride the ride, pretty much. So just learn how to accept that not everything's gonna go perfectly, which I think we all pretty much have come to terms with for the most part, but not just perfectly, but just, again, you're gonna wanna have everything figured out. You're gonna wanna have everything planned. And sometimes that's just not the way that life pokes you down the path. It's really not. So just take that into consideration. And this brings us to chapter 2 of versions of yourself will die a lot. As we change and as we grow, the old versions of ourselves die. And like, they're gone. They're goners. They're no more. And I never really fully put thought into this until I was actually in a relationship. And I'm saying this because a lot of the time, and it doesn't have to be, you know, one of these relationships. It can be a friendship as well. But regardless, you have to understand that the person you are friends with, the person who you are getting to know better and who you are investing your time in, you're going to see so many versions of that person. Sometimes it can be a hard thing to go through, but it normally always is a very beautiful thing to go through. And so when I thought about this in all of like my friendships and things over the years, I took that into consideration for myself. And I'm just like, Naomi, so many versions of you over the year have died. They're non-existent anymore. And that's a good thing, because that means that for the most part I've grown for the better, and I have changed in positive ways that will fulfill me and that will help me blossom into an even more beautiful and intelligent and educated young woman that I want to be, that I strive to be. And so I think that if you are someone in your 20s, or you're about to ease into that era pretty soon over the next year or two, I think this is a big key pointer. It's okay to change. I don't know if anyone has gone through this before, but sometimes parts of us might be toxic, and it's very important for us to acknowledge that. But when we're trying to figure life out, sometimes we might not handle it in the best way possible. And over time, when we're growing, we realize, oof, I did that in the past. Let me try a healthier and a wiser choice instead of going down this dark and toxic and unfulfilling path of patterns. And when we do that, sometimes the people who have known us for so long, they're like, why are you acting like that, right? Like, I know I'm not the only one. I mean, this hasn't really happened to me a lot in a negative way, but I'm pretty sure it's happened to a lot of other people. But if you know that you kind of had this reputation of being, you know, such and such, and then all of a sudden you start changing for the better, and you start changing for the better, and all of a sudden people who know you, they have this mentality of like, why are you acting like that? Like, this isn't you. Stop trying to act like something you're not. But in reality, you've been working on yourself so much to the point where it has become you. It is you now. The person that you used to be, the behaviors that you used to hold on to, the emotions that you used to express not so healthily, that version of you is gone. And if people refuse to see that, that is on them. But at the end of the day, anybody who has a sane mind and who wants to change for the better, you're going to see many deaths in yourself and in other people. Because I know for a fact, like, again, I'm pretty sure we all have close circles, however big or small they might be. And I can definitely say over the years, I've seen many deaths of, I keep saying deaths. I've seen many deaths. It's hard with the races. I've seen many deaths. My sisters, my friends, people who are acquaintances, my coworkers. I've seen many versions of them. And so, again, like I said, if you think of it as, you know, caterpillar turning into a butterfly, that type of change, it is a beautiful change and it takes time. But sometimes there might be haters and doubters along the way. Ignore them. Move on. Just know it for yourself. Chapter 3 brings us to the topic of take the leap. It will be worth it. So can we please talk about the beauty, but also the science of taking risks? Even if we're not quite sure if we should or if we can, let's talk about it. So, of course, this version of me right now that is speaking to you is coming from the young entrepreneur version of Nay. So, just be prepared. I just want to say, my young 20s were filled with taking risks. 100%. It was filled with taking risks from the get-go. After college, I just had the mindset I want to have a business. I want to be successful in my art and in my craft and in my skills, build my clientele, like buy my dream car, hopefully move out. Like, there were just so many things that I wanted to do, goals and dreams that I had envisioned for myself. And in those dreams, especially on the entrepreneurial side, came with a lot of risk because I had no idea what I was doing. And I have no problem saying that. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I didn't really have someone that I could go to mentor me in that area, if you were to say, because I didn't know, or I wasn't close with any family member who had a business that I wanted to start, you know, in that area. So it was pretty much learn and grow as you go. That's what it was. And I was fine with that because, again, with a lot of the risk taking came a lot of prayer as well, and just trusting God and knowing that everything will happen when it's meant to happen, and that everything when it happens is for my good. So having that mindset is definitely a helpful pointer. But just to tell you back to the actual taking risks, if you're scared and you're focusing more on, I don't want to do it because XYZ. I don't want to do it because I don't know if XYZ. Or I don't want to do it and I fail. I've said this moreover. I would rather try and fail than live with the thought of what ifs. Like what would have happened if I did XYZ? Because I'm telling you, the business owner in me is happy that I took that risk and got my LLC. Even with the fees that I had to pay in the very beginning, because again, I wasn't knowledgeable about certain things and I got false information about certain things too. So I had to learn the hard way in certain instances. But once again, life is all about learning. It's all about experiences. And as long as I take those in and I'm growing and I'm gaining wisdom in the process, then I'm winning. Regardless, I'm winning anyways. And so take that risk. If you want to start that business, take the risk. If you want to get a higher education, take the risk. If you want to travel abroad, take that risk. If you want to move out on your own, take that risk. If you want to find a completely different job that has no relevance to the job that you had before, take that risk. Because I'm telling you, once again, you'll either, number one, be like, oof, this is not for me, and then try something else. Or you'll be like, ooh, I'm really happy that I made this decision. This is nice. So again, either way, it's a win-win decision. I'm not saying that it's going to be easy, because God knows I have cried, like literal tears in the process when like doing my taxes for the first time and stuff like that by myself. Like, it was stressful. But again, I can say that it was all worth it. Now I do my taxes like this. But in the beginning it wasn't like that. And that's okay. The point is, I took that step. I took that climb. I took that risk. And even though, personally speaking, I'm clearly not even near where I want to be at right now, because your girl has big dreams and big plans for herself and for her future family. Yes, we are speaking that into existence. However, I'm very proud of where I am and who I am right now. So, if this is the inspiration that you needed to make that next move that you've been kind of like procrastinating, on a bit, come on. Like, let's go. I would push you if my hands could like go through the camera screen. Go, do it. Chapter 4 brings us into the topic of be alone. I know that many of us, when we're very young, especially coming from high school and college, we're like, yes, like hanging out with my friends, hanging out on the weekend, going out to eat, doing this, doing that. And I'm gonna be honest with you, when life hits you, whether it be like soft, medium hard, or very hard, it just hits you just in general, you're gonna get into the mindset of, man, I just need space. I'm an introvert at heart. I would say, like, of course, when I'm around people that I do genuinely feel comfortable with, I am definitely like 100% nay, like extroverted all the way. It's not until I go back into my own quiet place, go back to being by myself in my room, focusing on me, just having my own space, that all of a sudden I start feeling better. I start, like, the minor anxiety that I was feeling, it goes away. Like the discomfort that I was feeling, it goes away. And now I feel recharged. And I'm like, I want to highlight that word, recharged. Because some of us, on a regular day-to-day basis, we need our alone time. There's many people out there who cannot be alone. They can't stand being alone. But as I've learned over the course of these 4 years being in my 20s, it's being alone and learning to be alone will help you in the long run. Because many times, I don't think people realize it, but many times as you're trying to grow and as you are developing into more of an adult as each year progresses, life is lonely. Because even when you are with your friends, like, even sometimes when I'm in a group setting, I'll be thinking in my mind, like, man, I have to do this and that and that. And, like, at the end of the day, nobody can help you. Like, at the end of the day, no matter how many friends you have that are good, loyal, and helpful friends, there are just some things you just have to do on your own. Someone is not going to do it for you. And so just having that mindset and that ability and that knowledge to be like, okay, I need to be alone right now. I need space. I need to hear my own thoughts. That takes discipline, and it can be uncomfortable. It can really be uncomfortable. I can't relate to it because, again, like I said, I love my alone time. But it really, like, being alone really helps you just focus, and it gives you the space to reflect on your life, what you need to change, what needs to be improved, what you're not liking about it as much, what you are loving about it as much, you know, habits, behaviors that you're doing. Like, all those things will be very obvious to you when you're in your space and when you're alone and when it's quiet. And that's the truth of it. And I've gained so much motivation from being alone. I've gained so much encouragement from being alone. I've gained so much creativity from being alone. So there's beauty in both hanging out with people and getting inspiration from others, but there's also this really rare beauty of being by yourself and also getting that same, it's not even the same, it's like a completely different feeling when you're by yourself and you're just developing yourself and you're blossoming in your own space. It's completely different. So try it if you have not tried it. Get used to it if you're struggling to get used to it, and love it if you are still loving, because it's definitely going to be something that you need to get used to for the rest of your life. And our last chapter brings us into the topic of boundaries. Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. Where do I begin with this? This can take a whole video. I am probably going to do another updated video on setting boundaries, the beauty of boundaries, the importance of boundaries, as I've actually gotten quite a few questions about that recently and towards the end of last year. So I probably will do another updated video, but in this video, I'm going to keep it brief. So again, I'm going to backtrack to when we were in high school, when we were teenagers. When you're a teenager, you really don't have that many responsibilities. And yes, there might be some of us who had to get jobs or had to do this or had to do that. Yes, that is clear. But I mean, the majority of us as teenagers, we were teenagers. Okay, we went with the flow. We hung out with our friends. Some of us might have been a victim to peer pressure. Some of us might not have been a victim to peer pressure or to having people talk us into doing things that we might not have wanted to do. The list goes on. But as we grow older, you realize it is not that deep. And it is a little deal. Okay? If you do not want to do something, do not be forced. Do not feel forced to do that. Boundaries also include, if someone invites you somewhere and you don't want to go, no thank you, thanks for inviting me. That's literally all you have to say. I want to take my scarf and whip somebody whenever someone says, yeah, that sounds so nice or whatever, but like I had this other thing to go to, or I did this or I did that, like I have to do blah 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 blah. Stop over explaining yourself. Stop over explaining. You don't owe anybody an explanation. And that's one thing that I had to work on earlier in my 20s, because I used to do it all the time, especially over text. I used to be like, hey, sorry to bother you, but can I do it, or blah 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 blah, because XYZ, because XYZ ABC. Like, no. You set your boundaries, yes or no, keep it blunt, but you know, still stay in your feminine aura, you know what I mean? Like, don't be all like ratchet with it. But you know, some people have a hard time accepting the fact that other people have other things to do. And I might not even have things to do. I might just not want to go. And that's okay. And again, as you're developing in your 20s, you have to go from the mindset of like, oh, so-and-so's going, oh yeah, I'll go too. Okay, if you're going, I'll go too. Blah, blah. You have to go from that stage of like being all groupie all the time to now being like, actually guys, I'm gonna sit this one out. Like, I need a break. I need some space. I have a lot of chores to catch up on. I just need a self-care day. I'm tired, I'm sick. Like, I have to work. Like, there's so many reasons why you wouldn't want to go or you wouldn't want to do those things. So that's more talking about the physical aspect, but then also, you know, the other aspects of just like, if someone is talking to you in a way that you do not feel comfortable, that you do not feel respected in, let that be known in a respectful manner. If someone is talking to me and I can just tell like by their body language and their attitude and everything, it's just not giving respect. I might say something like, I'm sensing that this conversation is not going to be continued in a respectful manner, so I'm just going to remove myself from the situation. Have a nice day. And I walk away. And the beauty of doing that with so much grace is that it feels so good for you, because you're not taken out of, like, your face hasn't changed, you're not taken out of character, and you keep your composure. And then also, again, the massive beauty in that is that if I was the one being disrespectful and someone said that to me, I would feel checked. And again, I would feel checked not because that person raised their voice at me. I would feel checked not because their body language got all rough with me. I would feel checked because the words that they used really like did something to my head and my mind where it's like, whoa, like, I get that I'm upset, or I get that I was feeling some type of way, but they're right. Like, I was being disrespectful. That's the check. And if we can learn how to carry ourselves in that manner 24/7, I just like the blossoming. Like, if all of us ladies could just learn how to do that, like, that would be amazing. And I'm saying this because like a few years ago, when I felt disrespected, I would go off. I would go from 0 to 100 real quick. And I'm laughing now, but like I would do a lot of inner work and do a lot of reflection, and so over time I'm like, oh, like I cringe. I literally cringe. I was like, oh, I can't believe that I did that, or I said that, or I acted that way. But again, over time, that old version of you is completely gone away, and you put on like a new and improved, better version of you, healthier version of you, and that's what we're aiming to do. So yes, establish those boundaries, keep it clear, do not shake. Like, don't have a boundary one day and then the next day someone does it, you don't keep that same boundary. You know what I mean? Be consistent, and not just for you but for everybody else, because if I'm wishy-washy with the boundary that I have, and then all my friends or coworkers, whoever it is that I'm trying to keep those specific boundaries with, they're gonna think that I'm not being serious. So then they're gonna keep doing the things that are actually driving me crazy, that are actually making me feel disrespected, etc., etc., etc. And now I'm stuck because I wasn't being consistent and solid with my boundaries like I should have been from the start. So once again, it will take time, especially for people who struggle in these areas, especially when it comes to confrontation. And I think I should definitely do a video on this because I have an ick for confrontation. Like in the past, I've had an ick with confrontation. I hated confronting people, even if it was my sisters. Like, I just hated it. I would tell my sister, be like, go talk to her. Like, I can't, I'm not doing it. Like, that's just who I was for so long. But again, like, over time I'm working on it. But again, that's the beauty of life. That's the beauty of inner work. We are going to call ourselves out on the things that we need to work on, acknowledge when we're actually doing the right things, doing healthy, non-toxic behaviors, and we're gonna keep on growing and blossoming. So I hope that that was super, super helpful for you while you're on your journey of growth and love, and I'm excited to see you in my next video. So peace, love, and joy. Don't forget self-care. Lahi throat. Do